Hello and happy March 5th. Well, not sure if happy is the right term, but today marks exactly 1 year since I did something that previous versions of myself would never have predicted. I competed in bodybuilding. It's weird because it's something that when people remind me about that day, I quite often forget that I did it. Whether or not it's the brain cells I killed from salt loading or a kind of identity crisis of not matching with where I'm at today, I have no idea why I seem to kind of put it to the back of my mind. But leading up to March 5th this year, I had a lot of reflection about it, and I thought to share with you the truth about what really happened, and not only that, but the mindset that I had behind it all, in how I was able to have such what I believe to be resilience in doing something that is pretty challenging and known as one of the most strict and regimented sports out there. Let's start with a little introduction about how I came to make the decision to compete in bodybuilding. Well, shortly after moving to Melbourne from Perth, I fell in love with fitness, and it started out as a gentle kind of Pilates-esque thing, and then became quite an obsessive love for high-intensity interval training, specifically GRIT, which is a Les Mills program, if you've heard of it, half an hour of weights and cardio kind of stuff. But I was training so frequently that it was exhausting me, and I hardly had room to fit anything else in my life. And then I met my personal trainer, Steve, who inspired me to lift heavier and train with purpose rather than, I guess, just for the sake of it. The shift in routine was good until I realized that I'd formed a new routine, and that was still my obsession with going to the gym a lot. And you know, that is a good thing. It has many health benefits, keeping active and starting the day with exercise, but there is a key, and that is balance, and I had not mastered that. I realized that I wasn't actually training for any real purpose. I was fit, I'd reached my threshold, everything was great. What was I doing it all for? And that's when I thought, why not compete in bodybuilding? It's so logical. It wasn't a matter of taking myself to the next level or challenging myself or, you know, just doing it for the heck of it. It was more as a journalist. As a journalist, I was super intrigued at the mindset behind what enabled people to go to such extremes with food, diet, being strict on their lifestyle, and doing it for a very, very long period of time. Also, the inner nerdy anthropologist within me was curious at how the change in body image trends from skinny to strong was influencing women. And I'm a woman, so I thought, why not immerse myself in that culture and really find out what it's all about. I also wanted to put the criteria used to judge sports models to the test. I was born with a physical deformity that meant that my body was most certainly not symmetrical, and that is one of the governing criteria. So I wanted a little bit of shits and giggles to test the system. So let's get to the grit and the heart of the matter, which is, what was my biggest challenge and how did I overcome it? Did I even overcome it? I'll first say that my experience is not at all representative of every single other woman or person's experience within the bodybuilding industry. It is my story alone. And the reason I say that is because a lot of other young women's stories that I witnessed on Instagram surrounding their training leading up to compete in bodybuilding was very different to my own. I actually found great ease in the process. There was no desiring foods that I couldn't have. There was no days when I'd wake up and I didn't want to train. I found it curiously exciting to have such a strict meal plan and weigh it out. There was some kind of scientific experiment within it for me that fascinated and motivated me. I enjoy training and spending time at the gym. I liked the people I was surrounded by. There were no dark thoughts that entered my mind during that time. And I'm being completely honest because it was the time after competing that was actually my dark time. And that can be quite predictable in that women can, not all of them, but can go through, body image issues. And that, there was an element of that, but it definitely wasn't the reason for a sudden questioning of life, I guess, that came up from the anticlimactic. Okay, anticlimactic isn't the right word because the minute I stepped off stage and without a trophy of any significance, I didn't feel deflated. I felt empowered. Hungry and wanting to lie down, but empowered. I continued to follow the same training regime as if I were going to compete in another comp, but didn't have intentions to. I had been feeling incredible. My energy was great. My strength was through the roof. I deadlifted 105 kilos, which is over double my body weight. I was on a roll until one day I woke up and I couldn't move my limbs. I could hardly speak, and my vocabulary had diminished in that I started to even forget people's names. I didn't know what to do. I called my mum for help and I went to the doctors, and for days and days I was extremely fatigued to the point where it was debilitating and I couldn't even read a book. The closest thing I could do was listen to podcasts. I couldn't even watch TV because my eyes were really blurred out. I wasn't much use. And this at first frightened me because I had depended on my body for a very long time to define the kind of life that I was living, as well as define myself, who I was. Fitness was a great aspect of who I knew myself to be, and suddenly lying there defenseless in my bed, not being able to do anything, including think, I was searching for answers on what that meant in the grand scheme of my life. What was I going to do if I remained like this for the rest of my life? What meaning could be found in anything other than my body? What had I been building for myself other than fitness? Big life questions entered my mind, and suddenly I was in that dark space that I had never ever encountered in my training whatsoever. Anyway, this carried on for 5 weeks. It was exhausting walking to my kitchen. It was exhausting talking to people on the phone. It felt like it wasn't going to end. My doctor told me, she hypothesized that I was on the edge of developing chronic fatigue, and if I continued to live life as I had known it, which was training at the gym sometimes twice a day for several hours, 6 days a week, then I would develop it indefinitely, she thought. So I was really freaking out at first, but then, and this is where the mindset that I adopted intrigues me to today. I flipped around the fear-driven mindset that I was in of wondering whether things would possibly ever be different. And I thought, what can I gain from this? I've obviously kind of had my body taken away from me for the reason of giving me perspective. And, I kind of had this element of perspective a lot of my life, having a deformity with my leg, not being able to do certain things like ballet, wear high heels past a certain level in swimming. So the topic of capability and privilege in having a body that works was always something I was conscious about, but this was seriously next level. That's when I started to get really intrigued by how the mind works, and has essentially taken me to where I am today, which is looking into how the stories that we have about ourselves, our self-perception and our awareness of that, influences the actions that we then take in life. And so reflecting back on this 5 weeks of so-called chronic fatigue, I not only learn about myself, but the capabilities and potentialities that humans can have in overcoming very stressful situations. Thank you for watching. This has been only a fragment of my bodybuilding story. If there's been anything that has sparked your curiosity or you'd like to hear more about, please comment below, and I'd like to hear from you. If you've competed in bodybuilding, what did you find most challenging? Or if you are considering competing in bodybuilding, what do you see as being the greatest challenge you might face? And have you found any strategies for coping and overcoming these things? I would love to find out. Hope you're having a beautiful March 5th. Until next time.